We're continuing our educational zoom into the studies of the workings of the mouth and the face and how that really transforms with ABR, and then what nuances one has to be looking at. We have otherwise a very just utilitarian perspective of the face. The food comes in, as long as the child is able to swallow it, like there is nothing else to see. And if there is some kind of mulling within the mouth, then everyone is like ticking a box, or he can eat. But of course, the bigger picture is that the face is the epicenter of the entire coordination for the body. So that's why we talked about it multiple times. So the control of the eyes, control of the mimic muscles, and the control of the jaw, how it works together with the neck, this is really, really essential. So, and what we have as a typical thing, which is really, really important, unfortunately here I had to zoom dramatically, right? So you see that's a kind of a picture that a video that we had. So in order to see the face, I really have to zoom. So, but the big picture is this, that when we look at the face muscles, circular muscles of the face, here we are, right? Circular, circular, circular. Here we are, right? So you see, we look at the face, that's a bit gruesome, but actually it's a very good view. And if it's done this way, when you have these additional ones, or this way, so this is really highlighting the very important thing of how everything is working and what kind of connections you have there. And also this view would be very, very valuable to understand the importance of the separate control of the orbitals. But we'll start with this basics, which are really probably the most important, because this view shows you the link between the muscles of the face and the muscles of the neck. And when we look at them, right, that's very, very clear. And the hidden feature that is particularly important is how the jaw connects to the skull, right? We see the sternocleidomastoideus, which is connecting the arms to the skull. But then our biggest question is that, okay, how good is the connection of the neck? And then it's not an easy question to answer, right? Because the child with a very weak neck would have the trouble of tilting his head backwards all the time. And it takes a lot of phases to bring the head from that hyperextension into proper flexion, and even more in order to get the ability to control it both ways. So that's why we're facing this issue. How would we know that the neck is improving? And the answer is actually very simple. If the person starts having an extra freedom of the jaw and extra freedom of the mouth, that means that there is no longer a need to do this direct link from the arms and from the tongue, right, or from the throat to the base of the skull. Right, I mentioned this many, many times, but let's just illustrate it once again. So there is a digastric muscle, right, the gastric muscle itself, which is the one here that is showing you the link that where the connection goes towards the skull. So when the neck is weak, the brain would naturally recruit the opening of the mouth or the retraction of the jaw as the ways to control the head position via utilizing this frontal link. So that's the context through which we have to analyze the situation, right? And so here what we see, this is a kid who is now eating, right? And here we see this key point. See, as we study the movement, what happens? See, whenever he tries to do any adjustments, you see how the head slides. So that head sliding is in fact the demonstration of that jaw retraction that is necessary for the control of the digastric. And then when he chews, see, also respectively, he always connects the jaw with the head, and whenever the movement is happening, that's of course a big movement flying around. So let's zoom in and understand how the things are changing. See that this shift is really a problematic one, right? We'll restart the whole thing with the spoon, and then see we get this problematic shift. And you can see that the connections on the mouth are very, very limited. Now we look at the chewing performance and say similar angle. See, similar angle. What happens? This slide doesn't happen. See, now instead of sliding of the head, we see that the mouth floor, again, the picture is grainy, but you can see because of the multiplication, or like because of the zoom, but you can see how the mouth floor is working. So you see, that's a demonstration of the jaw that has had a lot more freedom. And again, we don't see this sliding effect. And then respectively, what we're observing the next level of freedom in the movement of the jaw. So here we have a lot less, and here we have a lot more. So for the same phase of the movement, we can see really the freedom of the lips and the very dramatic change of the mouth activity. Of course, it's grainy, but I think that even through the graininess, you can really see the massive change in the freedom of the mouth. So that's really, really the key part. So before we can talk about anything else, we have to get this freedom of the face. And the freedom of the face is the best indicator of what's happening with the neck. So the neck we cannot observe directly, but the face is much easier to observe directly, especially if we slow the time down and start looking at the way how the movement really happens in the frame by frame fashion. And of course here we also would see that overall our friend, see his overall performance does a lot more of the head flexion, and if we compare those things, you will see that his total intensity of the leg sliding and the leg activity, so that's obviously a lot less of this arm engagements, and there's a lot more of the head control there. So that's very, very clear. Again, we can see the big change also in the positioning of the head, right? So you see that's very, very clear. Now, of course, this position, he wouldn't be controlling it all the time as well as this, but that's that island of the goodness or the island of the positives that we can really see there. And that's, well, that's basically once we have it, now we have to build things around it and develop it. So that's really the logic, right? So we want to see the good things in a good sequence, in a good coordination, a good appearance, show up, and then we build and say, oh, that's the right thing. Now we build and make this more consistent and expand this kind of the island of the positive. So that's the true nature of the rehabilitation. And of course, the huge factor for this is the way how we achieve it. So that's our usual story about the three-way package which helps us. So on the one hand, even the work at the neck can unlock the face. That's already one big thing. Then the second thing, we have the direct work at the face, starting from the manual applications with the super eggs, and then nowadays we talk about the vibra pen becoming the leading tool. And the third thing that we are using there, that will be the additional helpers, catalysts, whichever way you call it. So you see those would be the acupressure gloves. So you see to get the additional point stimulus to the facial structures. And the easiest way to do would be the ABR fascia gel, which you just apply there, and that helps with the freedoms of the skin in respect to the muscles. So, and the greater stability of the skin delivers the improved freedom of the muscles. So that's really the logic of the application, and I hope that even despite the graininess, this example is very, very helpful, because here we talk about the child who is affected by very intense dystonia, which is very, very difficult to contain and control, in any other formats but ABR, right? But again, if we are able to manage the dystonia, if we're able to help even the child with this hyperkinetic dystonic form, so the other forms are actually somewhat easier to deal with.